So starting up is, it was pretty hacked together. It was sort of, it was going off an idea, just seeing how it sticks, right? So YouTube is pretty much our main advertising channel, journals on FA, and there's still a lot of work on how to actually get the word out really well. But after continuing to do this over and over, releasing a new video every few weeks or every month, started to build up steam, build up a little bit of following, and it got people interested. People were starting to donate, so I kept it going. I thought it was going to be, sort of like maybe the last few months, but it's been about 2 years or so, something around there. So I don't consider myself to have like any super amazing skills. I think this is something that anyone can do if you have the heart to do it. Like every single one can do this. So one of the first things was picking a cause, right? Because there are a lot of really good causes out there. There's an overwhelming number of good causes, and it's, you can't even go by what's not a good cause, because there's more than anyone could possibly support. So you really just have to find something which you're passionate about. Personally, I went with the Red Cross to start out because I'm a fan of what they do. I like, the thought of helping people who really just had unavoidable disasters happen to them, right? And they do a lot of things in addition to disaster relief, but that's sort of one of the major ones. Picking a charity is actually, it's a pretty complicated process. As a tool, I use charitynavigator.org. They have analysis of pretty much every reputable charity out there. You can look at how they lay out their finances. There's a few charities which I really wanted to support, and then I saw that 30% went into administrative costs or some mix of admin costs and self-promotion, and I can't support that personally, just because I think there are things that are more efficient. There are other things to pay attention to, like the size of a group versus how much they can, how far-reaching they are, right? If you take Furries for Life, 100% of anything that comes, to us goes directly to the charity because there are not many people running this, right? An organization like the Red Cross, they have thousands and thousands of people. Yes, they have some admin costs, but they're able to get anywhere in the globe where there's a disaster. So there's sort of like a sliding scale of, how much scope versus how efficient you want something to be. So one of the interesting things with this is that not everyone is a fan of the charity that you pick, right? It's just not going to be that way because everyone has different things that they believe in. So to try and extend this, I first took the group and I said, okay, well let's go to 2 charities. Let's try something which is very different from the Red Cross, which I'm going to get into. So I went for toys that stay within the hospital. So it's not like you're just giving gifts that will be for one person only. There are things which hundreds of kids will use. But still the interesting thing is that in order to get people to be involved enough to help, it needs to be not something that they're willing to support, but something that they're really passionate about. So the next step which I'm doing for this group, and it's a bit of a slow transition though, is trying to turn Furries for Life into sort of a service almost, where if someone has a cause that they're interested in, they can submit content to us for their cause. And as long as it's something that we review and approve, then we will blast it out on YouTube, on FA, on whatever our channels are, and sort of surface it for them. So every single video can be for one charity. And this sort of actually ties into some of the challenges that we have, where sending a clear message is extremely difficult. You have to deal with, well, the biggest issue is people don't like reading. You can put an image or a video which has text in it and they won't get it. They don't. Some people will read it and most people won't. So sending a clear message is actually a real big challenge. And tying along with that, when the charity started to go from one supported group to 2, there are some people who are like, wait, so what is this about now? Are you for this? Are you for that? Can you do this? Can you do that? So that's, I think funneling it into one cause per video will help that. The other challenge that we have to work with is getting others involved is much more difficult than it may seem, because there are lots of people who they will like the idea, they'll spread the word, which is awesome, but people who want to take it to the point of contributing their own material is sort of like another step. It takes a lot of work, and that's why I think that charity needs to be fun, right? If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're gonna stop, right? You know, I did some charity work before where like I ended up clearing wood chips to save someplace a few $100s, and I'm never doing that again, never, ever. I have better things to do with my time, even though they have a good cause, right? So what I want people to try and think about is, what is it that you love doing? Like, what can you just not get enough of? What is it that you can make which people will enjoy, something that you can share? And you know, for many people in the fandom, that is fursuiting, right? This is a really developed, fleshed out topic where there's so many things we can do, and Yippee will be speaking to some of that and some of his expedites with that, because he has a lot of great experience. He's helped a lot of people. Where was I going with this? Right. Oh yeah. So there are things that extend past fursuiting as well, which we can hit more people with. If you're a gamer, people have used gaming for charities. People have used artwork for charity. People have used music for charity. So yeah, really think about this. I guess I'll start on some examples that people have done on those points. So for gaming, has anyone heard of indie games for good? Yeah, okay, there's one person. If you have not, it's cool. They're a group of friends. I mean, I know a few of these people. They just got together. There are about 10, 11 people, and they said, hey, we love indie games. We like this charity. Let's just play games and make it a fun event that people want to watch and just have people donate. And they raise, I don't know if they got into, it's at least 5 digits in the number of dollars in every year that they run this. I think something around $20,000, $30,000 in one weekend. Just streaming video games, just making it fun. And that's the key, right? Because you just watch it, it's fun, you don't have to pay to get in, but hopefully you put on a good enough show that people will just want to chip in and want to help out. And it's also, you know, it motivates people, right? Because people can do their own thing on their own smaller scale, or join in to make their cause bigger. In the ways of art, many people have done commission streams. Many people have done, charity auctions. Every single con has become a really big thing. One example, Mary Mouse, if you're familiar with her, she worked with a con charity for, I think, FWA. She made unique badges. And if you buy the badge, all the proceeds go to the charity, right? So just more things where, you know, an artist obviously loves what they do. So they take something that people can sort of consume in a way and use that as a driver for charity. I'm going to take a little bit of a pause here if you want to talk about some of your fursuiting exploits.
Sure. Hi, I'm Yippee Coyote, or Jimmy Shin. I'm out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been working with founding a group called Critters by the Bay. Now, this is a fursuiting group that we do some charity work. We're basically doing mostly volunteer stuff in the community for fursuiting purposes. We've been kind of adjunct to established charity work, such as the Relay for Life for the American Cancer Society. Just the Relay for Life is a 24-hour just walk for life. They have teams that walk on the track for 24 hours, and sometimes they get boring. So, you know, we do volunteer entertainment to help the time go and, you know, enhance the experience there. We work with a couple local theme parks, actually. If I qualify, well, Children's Fairyland may qualify sort of as a charity. It's a sort of adjunct to the city of Oakland. It's a park off on Lakeside that it's been there since 1950. It's a gorgeous park that's been land value is pretty expensive in the Bay Area, and to have like a space downtown that's just for a park that's you know, a lot of people grabbing for it. There's a lot of memories involved in Children's Fairyland. We help enhance the experience there. In the past, we've also done volunteer appearances at hospitals. So things kind of died down around 9/11. People were a little nervous about bringing characters around. I'd in the past also been involved with a branch of the Good Bears of the World. Our local chapter was called Bay Area Bears. This is a group that takes gently used stuffed animals, mostly bears, and refurbishes them and provides them to anywhere that there's going to be children in need. Places like children's hospitals, police, fire departments, women's shelters, that sort of thing. And anywhere that there's going to be a child in need that needs a little bit of comfort. And we kind of done character appearances involved in either raising money, raising awareness of that. Our efforts kind of, things have kind of died down with that. The local people who are actually doing the bear part of the thing have, they moved on to other things, so we're not doing that anymore. But getting out there in the community in fursuit and just entertaining and bringing awareness and enjoyment, it's an amazing experience, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. When making contact to a kid, not sure, and just adding a little more brightness, a little more magic to their lives, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is that so Yippee does a lot of groundwork, like a lot of face-to-face interaction. It's actually something I want to do more of. A lot of my stuff is sort of taken, a level removed, right? Putting videos online versus direct interaction. So there are lots of different ways that you can sort of do what you want to help people out. And sort of the way in which you do this will affect, or rather the things that you decide to do can really have an effect on how many people you can reach. Like one of the things I'm dealing with or struggling with is actually sort of breaking the furry barrier, where all of these YouTube videos are, they mainly have a furry appeal, right? There are a few videos out there, not by me, I hope to get to that level in the future, but which have really broken past that barrier, where people say, hey, like, I'm not into this furry thing, but that was a really awesome video. And the sort of the key behind that is really just quality, a really high level of quality. And that's something which, as you get more experience, as you get more used to doing what you do, you'll slowly grow and you'll reach that point. So one of the questions that sometimes people have is like, okay, so I have these things, what do I do? And actually just asking multiple people in multiple places is a big part of that. Because if you ask people who may need help, they may have an answer for you, right? For example, someone who's a programmer, there are many people who may need help with their websites, right? To get their pages more efficient and just communicate their message better. And there's also the question of, do you want to start something of your own from the ground up, or do you want to find something which is already running that you can join in on? Both of those are equally important, useful, and helpful. So yeah, these are a few ideas that we had, but I also wanted to sort of open the floor, see if anyone here has had their own experiences, things that they have, whether it's things that they've thought about or things that they've done. I'd be happy to sort of share that with everyone. You can sort of collaborate together, get some ideas flowing.
Well,
all right.
How long is the reach?
One of the things that I do outside of furry, partially as a career, partially as something I also enjoy, is I work for a school district, okay, but I have also about 20 years of experience in theater and performance. Now, what that does, and it allows us to do, is one, I've turned some of that into just trying to teach people about performance and suit for volunteering on the furry side of things. But one of the other things I really enjoy is a lot of community theater and even bringing performances into the district in the auditorium where I work. One of the things that's happened out from it, as I've seen, is students who were interested in theater management, students who were interested in acting, students who were interested in the tech aspect of theater even. I've worked directly with several of them, and I've seen some of them turn it into a career. I had a student about 10 years ago now who ended up becoming a manager on Broadway for Wicked. So he was out there for about 5 years on that set, and came back to the school recently to visit, and we had a good laugh about how crappy our lighting system is. but he also turned around and thanked me for the time I spent teaching him some of the ropes and some of the real basics about it. And while it might not necessarily be a charity, a number as such, it's definitely something I see as, where you guys were mentioning, you know, even if it's on a small scale, using what you can do, using something you know or you're good at, to just kind of reach out a little bit and give something to the others around you, even if it's just in your local community. So, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you can't put a number on making a change in someone's life, right? You can raise a certain amount for a charity, which is great, but there are certain things that just on a personal level just are immeasurable. So whether you're reaching out for entire communities or not, there's definitely huge things that you can do for people. If everyone could help one person in a dramatic way, every single person in the world would be set. So actually there are two things which I slipped my mind to mention. Dancing. If you're into dance, go to the school. See if you can help out, because there are lots of extracurricular programs where there's no funding, right? And they can use someone to help out. I got lots of money. So yeah, definitely check with local schools. And depending on your level of expertise, you don't need that much expertise for something in an elementary school, but you can certainly reach a lot of kids and get them started. And also another example is the Paw Pet Show, if anyone is familiar with that. They run every single week, and they're always entertaining people, and just the entertainment alone, is really helping people. And I've spoken with the organizer, KP. He's used sort of, what's the name for it? Well, puppet, yeah. The sort of like cute little furry animal puppet performance. He's done that for children's hospitals. He's done that for kids all over the place, and not just him, as part of a group. And again, that's just one more way that you can reach out to a ton of people. Within the hospital that really is, that you touched on, which is really important, is collaborating, right? If one person has an idea and something they're passionate about, like the amount of time that we can dedicate sort of fluctuates, life gets busy. If you even turn that into two, you can keep the overall energy of the group at a constant high. Whereas you have one person, you can put in some time, life gets busy, you try to start it up later, and you may repeat that over and over. So definitely collaborate with people. Anyone in the room, anyone you find, just work together and you'll achieve leagues beyond what you can do by yourself.
Honestly, by the way, I'm Ty Fusky. Hello, I'm sorry I'm late, I could not find the room. No, I don't like microphones. I'll just talk loud enough that everyone can hear. Hi! I do charity and volunteer work in Jacksonville, Florida, where I live. My fursuit's a big blue dog, horsehair, black tattoos all over. We do, anytime we're offered, the fursuited group down there loves to do charity work. I mean, it's not on the same level as, the Bay Furs. They are just all about it. They do so much. Because Jacksonville has never had this sort of group to do that kind of thing. So I just wanted to really add that there's a level of determination and to just be persistent when it comes to volunteering and doing work. You're guaranteed to have at least one experience that's discouraging. Whether it's, something didn't work out how you wanted it to, or, you didn't get the response you wanted, et cetera, et cetera. It takes us weeks and weeks and weeks of, kind of happening into these events that we can go fursuiting for. You don't just show up at somebody's charity in a fursuit and say, hey, I'm going to help. So it's sort of like you find something small and you work from there and branch off into it, and it's sort of like each thing is a stepping stone, but it takes a while and you just have to keep trying. Giving up on it is the same as, it's difficult whenever, it seems like you're getting nowhere. Like he was saying, especially if you're the only person trying to do something, it can be extremely overwhelming. Because if you ever get busy with life or, you can't handle what's going on, it almost falls off the map and then it goes into nothing. And that's extremely discouraging because it's like all that work was for nothing. But it's not. You really have to think about, even if you only do a few small things and it doesn't get to what you wanted it to be, you still did those few small things. And if every person did a few small things, it would stack up to something a lot bigger. So that's all I really, just keep trying and don't give up on something that you really feel passionate about.
What do you do in Jacksonville? I live in Macon, so I'm not that far away.
We haven't had anything recently. Normally, we have a monthly fur-sitting event, which is like a public forum for art show and stuff. And a lot of time, charity organization and fundraisers and stuff will post up booths to try to get whatever information about. Recently, we did one for a Jacksonville legal aid, where people that couldn't afford lawyers, they would supply them with legal help for like homeless people with disabilities, low-income families, etc. And literally, we happened onto this because we had a fur-sitting group that just went to go have fun at this downtown art event, where all these crowds, all these kids, it was just a fun outing experience. But because we were there, we were approached, and it sort of just fell into our lap. It's really difficult with fur-sitting, especially because of the preconceived notion that the media is given about the fandom, and you always struggle with that, unfortunately. So a lot of what we do ends up just people see us, performing with kids, with families, being appropriate, behaving, doing nothing bad, and they want us, can you come do this in our event? Can you, make it something special for people? Absolutely. And then it builds off of that, because now we have those people that ran that as a reference. So if I ever approached anyone else, here's this event that I already did, call them, ask them, and they'll tell you that, went off without a hitch, and everyone enjoyed it.
All right.
So is it best to talk with the people who are actually overseeing the event first before you go in suit?
Yes, never just show up in suit, ever. That is a, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I've done some work with Cartoonimal over in Europe also, more directly, but I'm not one of the main people who runs it, but I have helped in some of the planning on a couple of things. I really can't emphasize how directly correct he is. If you guys, any group wants to show up for anything like that, with a charity group of any sort, make sure that you have everything planned out to some degree, especially if it's going to involve suiting or anything, because you're going to need, obviously, somewhere to get in suit. But then on top of it, you're going to need to find out from them what their expectation of what you guys will be doing is, because as much as you can say, oh, we're going to be great, we're going to be completely friendly for the kids, we're going to be doing this and that, the groups already have, well, okay, a mascot will do this in their head, or they're going to have an idea of, well, we really wanted you to do X, Y, and Z to really help us out with our event. We really wanted you to hang out more around our booth at something. We really wanted you to interact directly with our staff so it would draw people over. So planning out with a coordinator at that place and having one person for contact for that type of thing, who is either the one making a decision or directly in contact with them, is crucial.
Yeah, and I will clarify that suiting event that also on the art page is a public event. So the reason why we do just show up as a group and go fur-sitting is because it's open to the public, it's in a public park. As long as you're not a nuisance, there's no issue. When it comes to private property, it's a completely different ballgame. And we had a panel actually yesterday covering, performance in it. When we went over it, is paramount, you have to tell them, that you're coming and make sure it's okay. Just because when we're in fursuit, they don't know who you are. And when you show up in, a costume character, if I were to show up at a mall, everyone that's at the mall is assuming that I am working for the mall. So now I, as a character, am representing this entire establishment, and they don't know who I am. So that's that huge disparity that you need to get in touch with them and let them know who you are, what you're going to do, what you intend on doing. We recently did some stuff with the schools, and before, step one is we got in touch with them, and I emailed back and forth with the person, and they asked me, write out exactly what you would do, start to finish, if you entered a classroom in fursuit. So I wrote, a 2-page, I would do this, 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 and this. If this happened, this would happen. Like, I would react to a child crying or being upset by doing this. I need you guys to do this, this, and this. Provide me a headless room, a changing room. I need fan, water. Everything was covered before we even got to actually making it a reality. So that they know what to expect from you, and you know what to expect from them. without that communication, it's not going to end up as good as it could be, I guess. It's not going to necessarily fail, but the potential is really there.
And not to be cynical, but another reason that you need to go through all of these things is you're going into a public, let's say you're going to a hospital or something, you can't just show up because you're going to an area to cheer people up. You're like a giant, cute, fluffy thing. But seeing it from the hospital's point of view, there is a person with their face covered, unidentified, going to vulnerable people. And then another thing that I was going to say was, if you're going to do something public that you don't need to go through like administrative lines with, if you're going to a park or something just to play, just make sure that you have handlers because it can be super uncomfortable if you do not.
You need to plan out your entire experience. You know where you're going to change, where you're going to go. If you get too hot, you need a handler with you. You need to have identification, etc. Hitting on a hospital note, one of the main reasons I got a fursuit was because I heard stories of fursuiters doing volunteer work at children's hospitals. And I thought that was an amazing thing. So I designed my character to be as cute as he can. His personality is completely adaptive of public interaction. That is why I am a fursuit. But getting into a hospital is so difficult. It is not something that just happens. Even having done volunteer and charity work as I have, I would probably not get accepted to just go perform. Whenever these suitors do, these bits inside hospitals, they have extensive background checks. They see, any references that you may have. It takes like many, many times of interviewing back and forth. It's not something that is very easy to tackle at all. So it's sort of like a goal, I guess, to work up to. But don't necessarily set your sights up. I'm going to show up in a hospital first. Let's make this happen. Maybe do like Relay for Life. Is a great thing because they normally do it in a big open area, at a school or a convention center or something. People are walking around tracks, and there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of charities. It's for a good cause, and you can go there and perform. And it's a smaller, easier to get into thing than trying to show up to a place where people are sick and you're in an animal costume. They have to worry about you hitting machines or knocking things over, or scaring people, or even being unsanitary. Not saying there's anything wrong with your suits, but the fur can get into, people's breathing or water or anything like that and cause issues. I mean, there's so much to it that you don't necessarily think about on the front end.
That has gotten outraged, and he actually has a portfolio piece for every single character that he would bring into a hospital, like an actual, basically a resume. He has professional photos of this character, a list of their personality traits, how they interact with people, something that you can actually read, like the biography of a character. Where have they performed? Just a list of references. It's very extensive. Yeah, getting into a hospital it might be the hardest thing. Maybe next to going to like a military base or something, right? So yeah, it is something that also yields amazing experiences, and I hope to one day be able to do that myself.
Yeah, a lot of it is gaining legitimacy for you, and it's best to not just represent yourself. Usually if you have a group name that you organize under, if you're doing basically a group of fursuiters to combine efforts, that's the first step to gaining legitimacy. So organize under a group name. And present yourself professionally. Every bit of professionalism that you can lends credibility to it. And you can start out with smaller events, smaller things. Like with Critters by the Bay, we pretty much started with one. Actually, it started with mini golf. Actually, we would just go out to a mini golf place, and someone had seen us and said, "You guys should try going to this one community parade." And we started with that in 1997, and we're still going with that one. And with that, you gain legitimacy, you gain credibility that you do a good job out there, and it builds up and builds up, and eventually one of our guys had to work really hard to gain the trust of the city of Oakland, because with Children's Fairyland, since it's associated with the city of Oakland, they had a mascot, but because it was a city thing, they had not so much volunteers as people doing hours of community service, and when you put juveniles who are doing community service into a mascot costume, they're probably going to run around the park scaring the crap out of everyone. That is that turned them off of mascot characters for years, and one of our guys actually gained their trust back, and now, 5-6 years later, we're still doing it, and it's a wonderful thing. Just start slow and don't push things. Another thing that we have done is actually we shied away from using furry terms, just to try and stay away from that media stigma that's been going on for the longest time. We call them costumes or characters or
mascot.
Yes,
I'm a
mascot,
mascot performer. Typically the word furry is never ever uttered. You should never be the one that presents that word into a conversation. If they ask you, a good way of handling it is whenever I'm asked that question, I respond instead of a direct yes or no, because that allows them to make the decisions on what their opinions are. You can answer with saying like, well, I participate in animal fundraising conventions across the country. I'm a performer that goes there and helps enhance the experience of the con-goers to further, I guess, what's the word, whatever, to facilitate the raising of money for insert animal charity here. So yes, I am involved with the fandom in that regard, and then immediately, assure them that you are, I guess, not, in a simple, blunt term, not associated with some of the ways the media presents it. Don't expand on it. You don't know how much they know, so you don't want to put things into their head. Just immediately disassociate yourself with anything negative. And also, just as a note, if you have a character that is a little playful, I'll say, not necessarily in the adult regard, but if you drink in suit or party in suit, dance in suit, if you do things that could be seen in a bad way, just be really careful, I guess, about how far you go. With my character, I avoid doing drink even when I'm at a convention. I never grind on anyone while I'm dancing, or I don't really even like taking the suit to dances a whole lot, just because if anything ever surfaced of a picture of my character, my suit doing something negative, my entire charity and volunteer work is just down the drain, because they don't want to be represented by anything like that. So that's just a general note.
Yeah, Disney would not approve of Mickey Mouse twerking.
Yeah. It is, and like Yippee was saying, is getting an established name is really important. If you think about from their perspective, if I walked in and said, "Hi, I own a dog costume and I want to wear it," it's extremely different than saying, "Hi, I represent First for Life," or "I represent First by the Bay," or Critter. Critters. I'm a representative from Critters by the Bay. We have a set of mascot performers that would love to enhance your event and really add to the appeal of it and give the attendees something to remember. Those two presentations are complete other sides of the spectrum. So it's really like professionalism, like you said, is the biggest thing. Think about how you want to present yourself, how you're going to word it, the best way to say it, and then give them the feeling that they can have confidence in you as a performer. Yes?
As far as I know, I'm the only furry in the town that I live in. It's not a very large town. I can't really join any sort of organization like that because there is no organization there. And there is no group of people that I could form an organization with. So how would I go about doing good when I'm sort of by myself?
I would start without introducing the idea of, and correct me if I'm wrong because you have way more experience on it, both of you guys, but I would personally start with an organization and not introduce the concept of mascotting at all. I would volunteer for them, get involved with them, learn how the organization works, what their goal was, get familiar with them so they have confidence in you as a person, and then maybe breach that idea when a major event comes up or something that you can. Unfortunately, because you are the only one, it is a lot more difficult. Having 2 or more suitors in a group does make it a lot more publicly appealing. It's more accepted, I guess. People are more friendly when there's more suitors. It's not impossible. I would not bring up, personally, I would not bring up suiting immediately. I would not introduce myself as, this. It would be, hey, John, now that I've been working with you for 6 months and you know who I am and how the work that I do and you know that I'm driven and I would represent you well, here's this idea.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think just also to extend on that, the portfolio idea can also help. Whether, whenever you decide to, pose that idea, if you have something that says, hey, this is a character that I perform as, here are the traits, here's what they do, I think that will also help the case a lot.
And like as I was saying earlier, is referring to conventions, I mean, we all come here to see fursuiters and hang out with our friends, but you can present it in a way that I'm raising money for an animal charity. I've done work at this convention performing in this fursuit at this convention in Pittsburgh, I've been to San Jose, I've been to Connecticut, I've been to, all these different places for these conventions for fundraising. Here's my experience. It's taking what you have and making it look as good as you can and presenting it in the best way possible.
Yeah, you can list convention appearances as, sort of a history of the character, right? If you got up at, the Masquerade in AC, I performed publicly on stage in front of, this many thousand people for this event, right? And that looks pretty good. I was going to do an event with the basketball teams in Jacksonville for one of their finals games, and we ended up not being able to do it because they wouldn't allow non-staff members of the center on stage. But originally, whenever I was approaching them, it was because we did the legal aid volunteer work, and somebody there was linked to that, and presented the idea, sent it to the top saying, and they're like, oh, well, do you have any examples of what you do? I sent videos of me dancing in the dance competitions. They thought it was awesome, like I would love to have you come on stage during halftime and do a dance. People would eat it up, especially if I interacted with the thing. So until that got nixed because of rules, that was a reference. Even though I did the dance competition for fun and personal reasons, I just like dancing. I used it to make my professional appearance look better. On that range.
Do we have a minute or two? I've got an idea that I'd like to run past you guys.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Think of it, but I guess maybe I ought to use a microphone so everybody can hear me. Is this good? Yeah, okay. Anyway, feel free to buzz me if I ramble. I do that a lot. But anyway, I'm Zoot Wolf, and I'm from Central Georgia. And 4 years ago, I did not even know about the existence of the fandom. And but I can say that the fandom transformed my life. I can certainly say that. What I did was decided I wanted to cheat a fursuit, and decided that I should look good in it, so I did a workout, found out that I had a very dangerous heart condition, and because of that I now am packing a pacemaker. So I really feel, especially now, that I'd like to give something back to the fandom in a huge way, if at all possible. And even early on when I was learning about this, driving into work one day, and I was just kind of zoning out, driving along, and I had this thought. I thought, the furry fandom needs something like the 501st Legion. And I kind of like, oh, that could be good. And so I started to think about what this possibly could be. And I thought, I had heard of Critters by the Bay, and I heard of, the one group in New England, I think Oryx, she is like anyway. And even like the 501st, it seemed that so many of the charity organized groups were focused on performing in fursuit, just in the same way the 501st, they appear as the Star Wars characters. So of course, only like 15% or so of the fandom actually owns fursuits. So I was thinking about something that possibly that it would be very simple that everybody could get involved in. And I talked to some people. I have done volunteer work pretty much all my life, off and on. Most recently, I was at Conservator Center, which is the charity of Furry Week in Atlanta. And I was there for the weekend. I helped clean up like tiger poop and clean out animal pens and all this. And so I was thinking what might be simple, and I was asking a lot of people, and I came up with the concept, Critter Toys for Charity. And I was thinking that even just with a simple name like that, it would instantly explain what it was about, and it would be modeled after Toys for Tots, and that we as a fandom could collect any sort of animal toys. These could be like plushies, these could be like wind-up Godzillas, these could be even toys for animals, and even enrichment toys for zoo animals, and just have a lot of flexibility. And I am ready, in a very reckless way, to take out my 501(c)(3) on this and set up a charitable corporation. But I, certainly being reckless and being a little inexperienced with that, I've been a spear carrier for a while. Can you guys comment on this, or say any?
Honestly, instead of trying to set your own organization up, because a lot of,
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
Go with that.
a lot of the groups that do charity and stuff, they're not actual companies. They do have that name, but they're not
Incorporated.
they're not incorporated necessarily.
Oh, well.
And taking on something of that scale, because the fandom does span across the country and even the world, it is very difficult to get the fandom as a whole organized, which is why, we've got all these different charity groups in all the major cities, but that's exactly why we have all these different groups, but they're not all under one name. Because each one is kind of a local thing. If you do have a large fur community where you are, or even a decent sized one, maybe start as just a basic step with talking to Toys for Tots when that time of year comes around, and asking them if they would be willing to take a starting like for the first time doing it, a large animal toy collection donation.
That's excellent.
And then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and then that way, instead of creating a whole new company or creating a whole new organization or movement for that, you have something to present to people that, last year we gave 682 plush animals for kids at Christmas
Yeah,
time.
well, the idea is that we would set up drop-ins at conventions, and already I've talked to Tiger Paw at Furry Week in Atlanta, and we're hopefully going to try and start this at the next convention.
See, and that's the thing, is it's all about stepping stones. You can't go all in. You can't go all in at once. You really have to just test the water, and you need. It's about finding the right location, the right time, and the right people to do it. Which this is where I was saying earlier, it's about being persistent and being determined about it. It could go fantastic. Try to get an ad campaign going on it. Next FWA, bring a toy. Bring something with you, even if it's small. Pick something up from the airport.
Yeah, it just has to be new. That's the only stipulation.
Well, whatever the requirements for it, I guess, are. But get something, bring it in, donate it, and give something back to the community, or give something back to whatever target populace that you are. And then with those initial stats of how it went, you are able to take the next step. But until you have that initial base and that example, it's difficult to do anything bigger because you have no foundation to get people.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
To
That
get
is
people interested in
absolutely
the market.
correct. You got to start with one test shot and see how it goes from there.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
I think that it is a really great idea, though. Actually, so in terms of becoming like 501, an official charity, I'm actually sort of in the same steps. I want to get First for Life to be like a government-recognized charity. It is not easy, and I think the first step is actually to find a friend who is a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to actually have a friend who is a lawyer, and we're going to try to do that. But it's definitely not. It's not easy. There are some perks that come with it, in that it's just immediately reputable, right? Of course, there are some downside parts that come with that.
Sure.
You have to, you're gonna have to file extra paperwork every single year.
It's also all I got to do is just
There's
Or,
also,
you know,
there's also multiple
what's
types.
about
We think of a nonprofit being a 501c3. I actually just worked for a nonprofit for a year. We think of that being the only charity organizations, but that's not true.
Right.
You can have a nonprofit sole proprietorship, you can have a co-op, you can have a liability, an LLC. I mean, it's not just a 501c3 nonprofit that does charity work. And there's a lot of things, like you said, getting a lawyer and an accountant is literally the only way you really can know what fits best for what you're trying to do. Because if you go all in on something like that, what you're trying to do may not need a 501c3 because there's so much to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. And then this also sort of goes into, collaborating, right? When you have something which is outside of your range of expertise, find an expert. Find someone who's willing to join you on your cause and see what you can do together. Like, just brainstorm, right? See what is reasonable, what's not. Isolated consultancy, like, is it going to be worth it to go as like an official government charity for Furries for Life? Maybe, maybe not. It has the benefit that potentially we may in the future be able to actually be a con charity. I don't know. It's a dream. It's a long shot.
Right, there are,
Maybe.
like, for example, I wouldn't be able to set up here because Anthrocon prefers to have groups that are incorporated in the state of Pennsylvania. So, there are just all sorts of things like that. You just gotta see what's going on out there and be flexible and work with it how you can.
Yeah, definitely. Back to what Ty said about building in steps. The fact that you have, the chairman of FWA, working with you is amazing. And that's an amazing first step. You do 1 year with him, approach another con chair, right? Whether it's a small one or a large one, if you get this out of
Yeah,
your cons, you
I'm
can just.
extraordinarily grateful to Tiger Paw for that.
Yeah.
I told him about it, he said, do it.
And TK is completely right. It's all about, getting in contact with who you need to know. You can't, it's I guess kind of bad to say, but I can't walk up to Kage and, pose an idea or something to him and him take me serious. If I talked to Tiger Paw and got something implemented at FWA and it was successful, and then I approached FC out in California and it was successful, and now I have an East Coast and a West Coast con with more than 2,000 people where something was successful, I can walk up to Kage with confidence and say, here are my stats, here's my proof, take me seriously. And, it's about, you really have to have that foundation before you can do